Here it goes. Doot, 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 doot. We're live. Over on that side is Mr. Benny Griffin. I always pronounce your last name wrong. I say Griffith, but it's Griffin, right?
Yeah, yeah,
With an
Griffin.
E-N. And then Chris
I
Watson
Other
with
side.
Antidote of a Houndsman. It's
There you go.
backwards. We got 7 people up here and 2 thumbs up. And we got to warn everybody. We don't want no thumbs
Mhm.
down because it really upsets Benny.
Mhm.
yeah.
So
I'm a
only thumbs up.
Yeah, he has his spear ready.
So we'll just start out with Chris. Do you have anything new going on this week?
I I dug a 200-foot ditch for my dogs to get water to my dogs. I didn't have to run a hose. That's what I did this weekend. Sometimes you just got to stop and make life easier for your kids who feed your animals.
Well, you had a video come out too, didn't you?
I did. I was down in Mexico too, or by Mexico. Same thing, running that border, trying to catch them jaguars.
You were there this week or
I was
last week? No,
there
it's the week before.
a week before last. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Had
that's
a
the last time we went live. We talked about that, like had that trip report.
Yep. Yeah, we caught a little Tom.
Yeah.
That's when I
And then
realized I needed to buy shot collars.
and you had a
Good problem.
video come out Sunday
Sunday.
about your
That's
trip
about
down there.
Yep. It's broke up in a couple parts. That was the first part of it. We rode mules. Second one's going to be us walking, and third one will be us back on mules again. So,
Benny, what's your story for this last week? And then we'll get into the story of Benny Griffin from when he was just a little stomper.
I let's see, what did I do? What day did I go?
you guys were
Where?
I
gone
don't
this
even know.
week.
Tuesday. Tuesday I drove to Douglas, Arizona and got on the trail down there, Geronimo Trail. Drove in the mud, spent the night at Tyler and Caitlin Klump's house. Got up Wednesday morning, drove through the mud some more, went to the Taylor place, and spent 4 days down there, rimming out and having fun.
Rimming out and having fun. It rained a lot down there, didn't it?
There, all of the washes, the creek bottoms, and everything were still running water when we left Saturday morning. Not running a lot, just running a little bit, but they had run quite a bit of water, and up on those mountains, on those steep hillsides, the horses would sink in 4 or 5 inches, and when as they pulled their foot out, their track would fill with water. They got they
Hmm.
got somewhere close to 2 inches of rain, I'll bet.
It's a lot of water down there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the fillery, if they'll get warm weather like I've got right here at my house right now, the fillery will take off, and then they'll have to be careful too much hot feed for the cattle.
And then
Better than
I
no feed.
I went down there and showed up Thursday morning. Yeah. Was it Thursday
Mm-hmm.
morning? Yeah, Thursday morning. I showed up uh, real early. I left the house about 3:30 in the morning, and I went over there and I rode some of that country with them. Looked at some of those trails and had a good time. The next day, we rode some trails, and I fell off my horse.
That's a story in itself.
Yeah, Benny said I did like a half gainer or something like that.
Well, If you were younger, it would have been more graceful.
Well, I came off, and when I looked where I was, my boot was off my foot.
It certainly was.
Why do you? I don't think I like that laugh. I could have been
I was gonna
hurt
say,
bad.
yeah.
Hey, Brett, you're alive and well. It helped your back. You don't hurt anymore. It's all good after you live through it. And I've never seen anybody fall off their horse, do a complete somersault with all their limbs extended, and then land on top of their own boot.
I got skills, man.
Hey, at least he didn't get hung up in
I
the
got
stirrup.
I got to
That's all
tell
that
the
matters.
whole story so people don't just think I'm just lollygagging around and fall off my horse. I I, I was riding a little dun mare, and I used my saddle, and my saddle that I rode Agnes with, and it didn't fit just right, and I could tell, and I don't think the little dun mare had a really good set of withers on her, but and we're those trails and where we're riding, most of them are where those illegals come across, and we're riding those trails all over the place, and we come down quite a few hills, and when we went down them, the mare wasn't real good at getting her hind end underneath her and kind of sliding down. And I'd even mentioned it to Billy, said, or Billy, Benny, uh, that I'm okay, that this that my saddle keeps sliding forward. So it doesn't bother me if it's a green moonshine, but it doesn't bother me to walk downhill. I mean, shoot, I walk downhill. So I just started leading downhill. I'd lead down the hills. Everybody else is riding, and I look like a gunsel leading downhill. It didn't bother me. And then we were riding down on this one point, and it was just a little piece of downhill. I mean, it wasn't even very far. And I thought, well, I'll scoot back and lean back and just see if I can get it down. And I mean, this saddle came, and I had my back cinch tight. I don't care what anybody said. That back cinch had been tight because, man, I roped for years. I mean, when you rope, you tighten up your back cinch. And we started down that little hill, man. That saddle slid forward, and then it popped up like that. And I was sitting on top of that mare's neck, and she got scared, and things got worse after that. I don't like the way Benny's laughing about this. And uh, I came off, and Benny said that I did a flip or something. I don't know. It was steep. I mean, it was steep like that.
It was bad.
It was real steep. And when I came to, my boot was off my foot, and my hat was somewhere else. And everybody was looking at me. They thought it killed me. Are you
And
okay?
your was sitting like this on your horse.
Yeah. And it was like up. I anyway. I
Oh, we got a snow hunter in the crowd. We got a snow hunter in the crowd.
Which one's that?
The one that just said the cheater dust hunter is here.
Benny?
Get him, Benny.
Get your spear. Get your spear. We need your spear. And
They'll just have to get over it.
anyway, the weirdest part of my whole story is, I mean, I hurt. It started hurting, and I told Benny, I said, I don't think I'll be able to go out tomorrow. I said, it hurts bad now. I couldn't hardly get on and off the mare. And I went to bed that night, and I got up the next morning, and I felt super good. And my lower back usually hurts me anyway, it just hurts me. Never hurt after that. It feels better than it has for the last 6 months right now. So
Popped it back in.
I guess it did something. Anyway,
There you go, Benny. Whenever he's limping, just push him off the horse.
knocked me off.
Fix him.
Well, and probably from his saddle. I don't know if we can count it from the height of the saddle when it stopped and it looked like the ejection spring had been lit, or point to down there next to me where he landed and finally stopped. He did a full Nelson with a complete somersault and a half gainer, and I think he was just trying to show off.
Well, you know, show my
He's showing
skill.
off.
And John couldn't believe that he's trying to train his horse that way. Brett, leave my horse.
And the good Lord was looking after me because if I would have hit anywhere else on that mountain, it probably would have killed me. But that's the softest spot. I mean, it was just soft dirt. It was nice. If falling off your horse can be nice. All right, let's get to Benny. Let's
I
you know
that your boot was laying there without you in it.
yeah, and my sock was just mud.
And no video.
No, I didn't video
Yeah,
this time.
Oh, Benny should have had a video.
Yeah, but
oh well.
let's get to Benny. We've Benny has come on for the last 3 times, and we've kind of hit on he's told different stories about his experiences, but we've never really let him start from the beginning and go through his story. And after we were in Arizona and we got to sit down and interview John Clump, and me and Benny sat there and got to listen to him and talk to him and get his stories about where he came from and his family and the things he had done, and the jaguar that he had caught in 1986. And it was a super good story. And after we were done, I got thinking, man, I've never heard Benny's whole story, where he came from. Who knows?
That
Where'd you come from,
John
Benny?
Clump.
Tell us.
Phoenix.
That's Benny's
Oh,
story. Okay, let's turn it off.
better
We're
than
out of here.
better than Los Angeles. Better than Los Angeles. Next.
I, I don't know, I was a little kid, 8 or 9, and I spent a lot of time. All of us were our cousins. We were all real close together, and one of my uncles had a shop in his backyard, and in the back of his shop, between the shop and the fence, he had a kennel, and he had the most ferocious dogs back there. And I asked him, "What are those dogs for?" And he said, "Well, they hunt bear." And I thought, "Good grief!" A dog. To a little kid, those dogs were bigger than me. They were Airedales with some of them had some blue tick crossed into them, so they were pretty scrappy dogs. And I thought, good grief, there's dogs that'll actually run down and fight a bear and make him give up. And I thought, that's just too much dog. I didn't want anything to do with those dogs. I never tried to pet them. I never tried to, but it intrigued me that there would be dogs out there that would actually do that. And so I don't know, years go by, and I've always been a fan of dogs, but I, I really like working dogs. I don't necessarily want a little dog to hang around with me and get hair all over me and sleep with me and all that nonsense. That's for other people, not me. And I guess I was 20 years old, somewhere right around there, and I started collecting a bunch of hounds. Everywhere I saw a hound, I'd get him and put together a pretty nasty mess of menagerie. But I started hunting coon with a bunch of other guys, and we when we'd all go out together, we'd have 30 dogs, and all we had was a wreck. I remember down on the river on the let's see, I guess it'd be the Salt River after the Verde joins it. Um, the dogs actually caught a coyote and had it down when we came running over the bank.
Those are
Those
good
guys were so
dogs.
Yeah, those guys were so proud of their dogs, and I thought we're supposed to be coon hunting. Coyotes aren't acceptable, and I couldn't even fathom celebrating catching a coyote. That was the only coyote that I know that they caught for sure. But we caught numerous skunks. Uh, we caught one, and all of that running back and forth and spending money and feeding dogs and trying to learn how to do something. We caught one raccoon, and I
No
finally quit
porcupine.
everybody. No, no porcupines. I quit
Lucky you.
everybody and went myself, and sure enough, if I could get my dogs focused, we caught a raccoon. And I thought, well, there's got to be something to this. I don't need to be running around with all these guys. And I didn't lose the friendships, but I started trying to change my focus. And I was working for Associated Fence Company in Glendale. I was a welder for them. And I had an uncle that was running buddies with Rick Dickerson. They all grew up together. Dickerson was a few years older than me. And my uncle said, "Hey, you've got hounds, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Dickerson's quit drinking and cleaning up his act, and he's got hounds again, and he could use a friend." And so he gave me Rick's phone number. I hadn't talked to Rick for years and years. And so Rick and I started hanging out. And Rick had, oh, somewhere in the middle of all that, I guess, I met Jim. Oh, okay. So let me back up. I started running around with Rick. Rick was selling all of his guitars and amplifiers and everything from when he was a rock and roll star. And he was meeting everybody. He was like I am. He wanted to meet somebody. He found out where they were and he went and pestered them. And he talked George Goswick into selling him two dogs, and a real old dog, and then a kind of a young, medium aged dog. And those dogs, I finally got to see what dogs were made of, what kind of, what it took to have a lion dog. Before that, Rick and I caught javelina, and we caught skunks, and we caught deer, and everything that dogs do. And when he finally screwed down and started spending the money, and I got to go with him, he bought a dog from John Klump. I think I told that story where that dandy dog caught those two half-grown lions together in the same tree up there on Pine Mountain.
Did
And
you tell it on here, or was that just us talking?
I don't know. Rick Rick lived and his family lived in Sunny Slope, and I lived out by Tolleson. And he was renting a place, and he started getting ready. He was a taxidermist at that time, and he uh, he was getting a house built, and he couldn't afford rent and house payments and all of that. So his family moved in with my family, and that's how I got to hear about John Klump. John Klump called the house looking for Rick, and this is back in 80, 84 or 85. And so Rick bought a dog from John called a little female called Dandy. Is that right? I just said the name wrong. Anyway, he bought that little dog, and Rick knew he was on top of everybody in the whole area that lion hunted, and he knew that up on Pine Mountain, north of Phoenix, um, a guy had killed a female lion in the snow. And so on a Sunday, Rick and I just jump in the pickup and take the horse and mule and the dogs, and we go up to Pine Mountain just to look around. And the snow is mostly melt, just a patch here and there. And we found that female's track, and we found where the dogs had trailed her.
Be
And
careful.
we
Be
didn't. We
careful.
saw.
Be careful, you'll ruin your reputation here. Snow hunter.
Well,
Yeah. Can
we
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 delete that? Can
decided
we rewind that and beep it out?
we decided to it was we could just see in those patches, and so Rick says, there's nothing up here and it's getting late. Let's go to the house. And so we were parked down at Nelson's place, which is a little piece of private property where the road ended back then. And that dandy dog was trailing, backtracking towards where we were going. And Rick said, she's backtracking that female that they killed 3 or 4 days ago. She's going the right way. Just leave her alone. That was the first day he'd ever had her out since he bought her. And there were some fingers that came down. All of those fingers of those canyons came down and ended up in that canyon where we were. The trail was. It went down back where we were headed. And we get down there, and Dandy's treeing on one of those points. And Rick jumps off his mule and says, "Here, hold all this. I got to go. She's probably caught a skunk." And he hollers back and says, "Hey, bring everything up here." And so Dandy had backtracked and put two half-grown lions in a dead cedar tree hanging out over a bluff. The same tree, both
Oh
both
wow.
of those half-grown lions. And he paid $900 for that dog from John Clump back there in the 80s. Hey, I appreciate that, John.
Thought you needed some support.
Yeah, I do. Anyway, um, so that was where Rick had started buying good dogs, and I had started changing my focus. Uh, we started hunting, and because of Rick Dickerson, I met a guy in Bloody Basin named Jim Brooks. Jim had a horse for sale, and I needed a horse, and so Bill Workman told him to call Dickerson, and Dickerson's phone rang at my house. And anyway, I ended up buying that horse from Jim Brooks, and I went up there and rode with him and went hunting with him. And he said, "Well, why don't you go home?" And by then, we had a little bitty infant daughter. And go get your wife and your daughter and come back, and we'll take tonight and bring a horse trailer, and we'll go hunting again in the morning. And so I ran with Jim Brooks for almost 2 years probably. I was up there at the 51 ranch in Bloody Basin country for a minimum of 3 days a week for almost 2 years. And then I met some other people up in there, and I just started branching out and hunting with some of them guys. I hunted with the Pox and the Mallories over on the Tees off of Interstate 17 that all came to that same country up there in Bloody Basin. They were all neighbors. Um, that was we were talking about that, Brett. That was the John Klein Ranch
Oh
back
yeah.
then,
Yeah.
and that's where Larry Hendricks first started. That's where Steve Smith first started. It's kind of ironic. Those guys turned out to be such top-notch lion hunters, and I came in behind them and cleaned up the scraps, and I got to go lion hunting, but I never got to be as good as those guys. But
John
I do like
Klein,
to hang.
he's the one that Steve Smith said if there was a real life John Wayne, he would have been it. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's how I met Don Pock and Gary Mallory, and then there was a Mike Pock. I think he's a nephew of Don's. I'm not sure that. That's where I ended up getting some good dog puppies out of New River. Um, I had all these dogs, and I went for years, and I had I had three decent dogs, one real good dog, and two mediocre dogs. When I moved to New Mexico, I thinned my herd down to just those three dogs, and then I went to work too much, and I was putting in too many hours. I got self-employed, and I was working 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, and I didn't have time for my dogs, so I gave them to a guy up here. Um, that's a whole new wreck. But I went without dogs for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, and I never could get rid of my hound bug. Like I said, I've said in the past time or two that I always did it for the dog. I love the hounds. And it goes back to the seed that my uncle's dogs planted in me when I was a little kid. Just the thought of something that could take on one of those predators that could kill them, and the fierceness and the ferocity that they have, and the no back down, and it just always intrigued me. Well, I was I'd gotten the business going good enough so that I didn't have to be there 100% of the time anymore, and I started having the bug for some hounds again. And I picked up a walker dog that somebody had lost over here on the Pecos River. And my wife said, "What are you doing with that dog?" And I said, "Well, I kind of missing it.
Here we go again.
We
Mhm.
go." And I don't know, I found who owned that dog, but Justin Marks, a good friend of mine from Bloody Basin, he gave me a dog. She ended up getting hit on the highway, but I just couldn't get over not having any dogs. And so Marlon Horton, saddle maker over here, he spent some time up by San Juan, up by Amarillo, and he was real good friends with Joel Garnett at Tucumcari, who used to be a judge. Joel was good friends with Van Johnson, and Joel had a real good dog out of Van's dogs, and he bred that dog. What was that dog's name? Was Pete, out of Van's blue dog.
He
Bred it
had
to a
Pete and repeat.
well, yeah. Pete was the father, and Mary was a walker that Joel had, and they had way too many puppies. They were trying to get rid of puppies, and Marlon Horton told me, he says, "Hey, I got a friend that if you're wanting some hounds, they'll send a puppy down here for you." So that's where I got Trip, and Trip was a litter mate to Repeat. I don't know how many of those dogs they had, but um, then I got a puppy from Mike Pock over in New River, and he was a high tan puppy. And I had these two pups. And my youngest son, had beagles here at the house, and they'd just run all day out there chasing rabbits and carrying on. And I just turned my pups loose during the day, and they'd go with those beagles, and they'd trail rabbits until they jumped them out, and then the jackrabbits would outrun them. And they'd throw a loose, and they'd learn how to make a circle and pick up that track again. And I got a call. I was called him. I don't know, but Justin Marks's brother-in-law lived at Childs, Arizona, on the Verde River, the north end of that ranch that they all had. And he said that he'd like to train some pups, but he didn't want pups that had been chasing cats. He didn't want pups that people had been polluting. He was looking for some 6-month-old pups that knew their name and hadn't been monkeyed with. And so I said, "Well, I've got some, but I don't want you to keep my pups." So anyway, we made a deal, and I sent my two 6-month-old pups to Brian, and I paid for their feed and upkeep, and Brian hunted them. And as soon as they started throwing in and making a hand, he wouldn't let me buy their feed anymore because they were contributing to
Mm.
knocking lions, not so the lions weren't eating the cattle. And that first winter they had those dogs, Brian caught 9 lions, and that made my dogs. So they kept those dogs between him and Justin. They split the packs up and each took part. And they had my dogs 3 years. And Justin said, "Hey, you need to come get your dogs and do your deal." So that's when I went over to Richard Dickerson's in Texas, and I was looking at some young dogs, and he had a little pup there, and he told my son, turn that pup loose and watch. And he had a bobcat in a cage, and that pup, just little female pup, just ran wide open for.
What? You can't do that, Benny.
Yeah. See, he did that on
I,
purpose. Oh, he's there.
hey, did I leave?
Oh, there you
Where did I
are.
go? There I.
You turned black.
Mm-hmm.
I
I
mean, the
did.
screen turned black.
Yeah, be careful.
So
Struggle.
anyway, um, Tyler messed me up.
Went quiet for a
Regain
second.
We were
composure.
Yeah, take a breath, recharge.
anyway. We were, Dickerson. He told my son. He said, "If you can catch that pup, you can have that pup." And he's trying to get Justin preoccupied so we could go look at some other dogs I was going to buy. And Justin showed up with that little pup. He says, "I can't believe it. I don't know how that boy caught that pup." So he gave that pup to my son. And so I had bought two or three dogs from Dickerson. And then he gave my son that pup. And that pup went back to Steve Smith's Popeye dog. And I thought, I finally got some good genetics. And so that's when I started beating the bushes and looking for improving my chances overall. And I just hunted and hunted and hunted and hunted. I hunted all over New Mexico. I hunted all over Arizona. I hunted the Davis Mountains of Texas. And anytime I could be gone, I was loaded up, and me and the dogs and my horse and mule were gone. And that's how I met Hendrix. I was looking for somebody that had a good dog that I could breed that dog of my son's to. Her name was Blanca. And everybody kept saying, "You need to go talk to Larry Hendrix. You need to go talk to Larry Hendrix." And finally, I called Karen Holcomb, and she said, "Benny, all of my dogs are neutered. I don't like male dog habits, so they're all cut. But if you'll go see Larry, Larry will help you." And so I left here at midnight one night and found out where Larry lived and showed up at his house at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I told him who I was, that we had common friends. He said, "Well, come sit down and let's talk." And the rest is history. I I changed my circles, the people that I was associating with. I changed the way I got dogs, where my dogs came from. I got more focused. Um, when I was on Big Game Houndsman, and when Buddy first started that deal, it was kind of small. And those people that used to say every hound breeding is a 50-50 crapshoot, boy, I just used to get so bent out of shape. It doesn't have to be a crapshoot, and you don't have to have dogs that came from anybody world famous. You just have to know your dogs and follow your genetics and have laser vision. I guess you got to have tunnel vision and laser vision and know what you're after and breed for that. And that's what I did until I got sick. I was diagnosed with a tumor on the back of my lung and cardiomyopathy. The left half of my heart was enlarged and weak and only pumped like 12%. People with that level of cardiomyopathy die within 5 years. I didn't die. That was 19 years ago. My wife didn't want me hunting as hard because I was always by myself, and I understood that. So I slowed way down, and it cost me some dogs because you let them sit around too much, and you lose what you had. And I ended up getting a dog from Larry Hendricks there at the last, and making one last hard push. And then when I decided that I was too busy to do the dogs justice anymore, I gave them away. I gave that whole pack away and my kennels, and it's probably, I would guess it would be easy to say I gave $50,000 worth of stuff away. But
I
to me, it's
remember
about the dog. What's
when you
that,
loaded
Tim?
those kennels up and hauled them to Arizona.
Yeah. It's about the dogs.
Yeah,
It wasn't about the dead lion. It wasn't about the any money to be made. It wasn't. It was about the dogs.
yeah,
And both times I got rid of my dogs, I wanted them to go somewhere where they'd be utilized.
cool. Yeah, now you made us all sad.
Yeah, good job.
Okay, that's
Well,
it.
You know,
I
Night's
don't know
over
what
with.
made you.
yeah. Sorry, guys. We're gonna go cry.
I don't
So
know
you
what made
know,
you
you
sad.
say
You
we
know.
do it for the dogs, but it's kind of a reciprocating gesture because them dogs do it for you. You know, so kind
Sure.
of the
If
happier
you
they
think
are, the
nice.
happier you are. It just goes back and
Yeah.
forth. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
don't understand that. So and then we keep talking like whatever on this, and we know everything because older dog guys. A lot of these guys are dog guys, but what we need to do is talk about all them questions that these dummies that are coming in that don't know no better and getting into dogs because they're not smart enough to say no. They should have a dare. Dogs for dogs that don't do dogs. But you know, he's talking about sending puppies to somebody. Like, how do you pick that? How do you pick that as a young guy? Is it wise to just find somebody that's out there every day and say, "Hey, how much is it going to take my dog? Is it worth it?" We know it's worth it. I'm younger than you guys. You guys have way more stories than I do. But to a young guy, I'm talking the 20-year-old you were. What can you tell them about getting started with that kind of stuff?
Hmm.
I
Besides,
don't
don't
think they'll.
do it. Just find somebody with dogs and not with them.
But they won't listen. I wouldn't. I mean, I didn't have that opportunity. I didn't know anybody. I know a bunch of drug-headed coon hunters. They spend all night snorting cocaine, and I'd go dig a hole in the sand and go to sleep. I didn't need any of that
Benny has
nonsense.
now not only made the snow hunters mad, now he's making
Yeah.
the coon hunters mad.
Good job. Good
I'm
job.
just saying the ones
Yeah.
that I ran around with.
And you bear hunters, just stay off this podcast.
Oh, don't even
Just
come
stay off.
close.
Yeah.
If you're
Go
not
away.
a
Go away,
No,
dry
George.
ground lion hunter,
Well, it's different. It's
it was
different these days because
the guys that
you
I
can't get
ran
on the
around with.
podcast.
That's what they did, and I just that wasn't the life that I wanted, and so I just changed it up. But it took a long time. There's been guys that I've tried to help. Um, there's guys, and I've told them, and I've told them, and I've told them they won't ever grasp the fact that they've got 15 dogs and they've got all this time and effort and money into them, just like we talked the other day.
Mhm.
And if they started over with one dog and a couple of young dogs, and don't everybody wants 10 dogs tomorrow that don't know each other and that don't know you, and you can't make the deal work. Wesley Smith up there at Logan, New Mexico is the only one that paid attention, and he had outrageous good dogs
meat
for
dogs.
as long as he. And see, Timothy, I never was interested in that. When I started this lion hunting deal, I knew that catching them out there on the desert was the hardest deal, and I've always liked challenges. I never liked the hot races for the bear, the wide open. I hunted bear for a little while, and I made an attempt at it, and I just never could get on board. I like being on top of a pack of cold nose dogs trailing a hard track that sometimes I can see, sometimes I can't. But I get to watch the dogs. It goes back to the dogs for me. I got by watching those dogs, I also learned an awful lot about a mountain lion's habits. You know, And I know that there's people that have dogs that they want to run all that stuff with, and to each their own. And I'm not going to look down my nose at anybody that's doing something that makes them happy. Doing it how I did it made me happy. Going out there like that last video that you just released, and you know, we were on good tracks, and we didn't produce any lions, but I still had the time of my life. Tyler Klump asked me a month and a half ago. He says, "How come you don't get dogs again, Vinny?" Because I enjoy being able to go like that. I can go hunt with those guys. I can go hunt with Steve Smith. I can go hunt with any number of people. I can go over on the blue and hunt with those guys that I gave my dogs to. And I'm not constrained to being home every single day, worrying about who's feeding my dogs, who's cleaning up after them. When my wife would finally get tired of my kennels being filthy and she'd clean up all that dog crap, I had to listen about it until the next time it needed cleaned. And, and that's not good for either one of us. And I guarantee you, my feed bill is a whole lot cheaper going and hunting with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all you guys eat is tortillas out of one skillet.
That's a good
You know,
skillet.
it's a good skillet. But it's different these days too. You have all these podcasts, so you can
There's
all day
a
long while you're driving or working, listen. Just
there's
give
a lot
people
more information to be had out there now. I mean,
accessible information where you don't have to drive 4 hours to hunt with the guy.
well, yeah.
It's gonna be better. Like it's not as great as going and running behind somebody and watching them work their dogs. Look at John Klump, right? The guy
Oh,
just
yeah.
works his dogs. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
and there's little podcasts out there that, and it's people's opinion, but you can pick just a little bit out of everybody's and put together your own. And it's good. I think it's good for people to go out there and screw up real bad with a bunch of crappy dogs. It's like first wives. It's a good practice run. You know what a bad wife is. If it don't last, you go to your next one. oh, oh, except for Benny. He scored right away, perfect.
Well,
You
I
know,
just know that
and
if everybody in this hound hunting world would quit being jealous, would quit being so arrogant, and there's a whole lot of jackasses out there, and there
Here we
doesn't need to
go.
be. No, but it's true, Brett. You're aware of that.
Yeah.
Where would any of us be if somebody hadn't given us a leg up at some point?
that's how I got started. Guy gave me 2 dogs. Said, "Here you go, Bam Bam Walkers." You know, took me with him coon hunting. Took me with him. I told me. Back then the shock collars and GPS. Wrong. There you go.
I
There
just
you go.
became a blog.
For you people listening, Brett put a Lorax filter on him or face. And I can't hardly tell the difference.
Sorry. I had to do it. We needed some comic relief. Man, it's getting too serious and sad around here.
I know.
It's not sad. It's absolutely not sad.
The
You know,
truth.
I had 34, about 34, 20, yeah, 34 dang good years with my own dogs. And I miss them today, but it, it's a season in life. And for me, that season is different. I still have access to people because of the friends that I've made, and they still hunt, and I'm welcome to go anytime I want to go. So it's not, I'm not missing out anything.
No, yeah.
You know, and I get to see other people's dogs work too, and you know, and and then I like to ask people about their dogs. Where'd this dog come from? How'd that dog go? And and I still like to make the genetic tie-ins for everybody else's dogs. I'll never lose that desire.
Cool. So,
Let's go to.
anything else? Conclusions?
Well, no, you know what though? Nobody knows who Larry Hendricks is. Nobody knows who Steve Smith is. No one knows. They don't know these old timers. There's not many of these old time that are really left or coming up. This modern houndsman, I don't feel is they're good. I'm not saying they're not good. You got people like Jared Nichols and that are running bears, and you know,
Well, there,
it's just not the old timers. It's not the old timers.
there's a lot of guys out there that I think are really good. And I mean, how do how do you say good? I mean, they catch lions, and there's guys who do it the old-fashioned way, and we just don't. We don't. They're not on these deals like this talking. They're out there beating the brush, doing it. And that's
Well, how hard is it for you
They
to
don't
get
want this
people like
kind of
John Trump?
notoriety.
do what?
No, they
Yeah,
don't.
they don't want this kind of notoriety. All those guys are living under a bush and under a rock, and it's on purpose. I was that way until I had too many puppies, and even the people around here, they didn't they didn't believe that. They knew that I had hounds, and they knew that I hunted a lot, and they knew that I was always in the Guadalupes, but they didn't believe that I could catch any lions, and I liked it that way because then I wasn't in trouble. I wasn't under scrutiny. I wasn't in. But I came out from underneath my rock because I was trying to breed some dogs, and I wanted to get rid of some pups without knocking good pups in the head. And I guarantee you that coming out from underneath my rock has not been all good.
Benny,
We met.
Benny, the
We
Lorax came out of a stump. You got to watch the movie. It's not a rock. The Lorax came out of a stump.
we met a we talked to a young man this last week that said that he would rather not anybody know him because I wanted to talk to him. I said, "Can we share some of what you?" And he said, "No." And he said, "I'd rather not nobody know me." He was a young man, rides, hunts the old-fashioned way, and he just didn't want anybody knowing. Me, I started all this stuff because I was so fascinated with what Bruce Kennedy did when he was talking to a lot of the old time lion hunters, Warner Glenn and Ollie Barney and Sewell Goodwin and Terrell Shelley. I mean, I was just totally fascinated with those guys because we didn't have access to what everybody has now. I mean,
Not
I
easy access.
no, I
You
had
had
to
to
buy
buy
the
the CDs.
yeah.
And I
That's
remember sitting in my living room watching those CDs.
yeah, exactly. And I just was fascinated with them and I was interested in it. And I thought, well, maybe I can figure out some way to do that myself. And that's what I've done, kind of
And
talking to
what
guys like
and what
Benny.
people what people need to understand, these young guys, is it's not a video. It's not that easy. We don't have 3 days to put on YouTube or you know. I wish you could just make that stick to his face. We don't have 3 days, so we take. I went down. I went down to South Arizona, and we were down there for 7 days. I have like 10 hours of video. You come watch that 10 hours of video and see how easy it is when your dog trips you on the chain, or when you got dogs that are running off, and you know that dog's not doing what it's supposed to do. And with me, this last week I was down there, I had no shocking capabilities after about 60 to 80 yards.
You were
So
running naked.
I was old school, and I had my 220. I mean, I could every once in a while, if I got on a real high peak, I could touch that antenna on my alpha. And these kids these days, these young guys don't understand how hard it was back in the day. Listen to those Dale Lee CDs that are conveniently on Brett's interviews, stories, and tales. That was a segue for that. You
Thanks.
know, that guy tells you I can train 8 dogs in the time I train one with a shot collar. And those shot collars, I don't know how far the original ones he was using actually went, but and these are dogs that worked, and he still put shot collars on them. Dogs that just worked, you know, and it's a different day. But Brett knows how hard it
The
is to
older
get these old guys on this on internet. How many times have you tried to get some of these guys on this show, Brett? And they don't
Yeah,
want to do it.
they don't
You know,
care.
they it's not that it's just technology and they don't want to do it. No,
Yeah,
I didn't get my new tracking stuff yet, Timothy. It's on the way. It's on the way.
I was going to say, what's the name? I can't remember of the podcast that Josh Michaelis, I always butcher his last name. Uh,
Um
it's Kane something
the Quan, or
with the
you
where he
sent that
does
to me.
well, his YouTube channel is where they have those challenges with the coon hunters or whatever. Anybody
They do.
in the
Gosh, didn't
chat?
you send
No.
that to me? Let me see if I can look it up on here. Josh Michaelis.
Yeah, I don't even say his last name correct. Real good guy, and has a really good podcast, especially the podcast he put out today because I was on it.
Oh, segue. There's a segue.
Hey, Brett,
John.
don't get back out patting it because you're not going to go voluntarily jump off your horse.
Hey, Benny, you don't have no room to talk. You fell off the horse almost too.
Cane Stream. Yeah,
Cane Stream.
Cane Stream. I don't.
Go watch Brett's video he downloaded Sunday. Oh, Benny took for a ride too. That's on video, Benny. That's on
I didn't
video.
get taken for a ride.
Cane Stream, but
You
I
didn't fall off.
I think that in that podcast I did with Josh, and whoops,
What happened?
wow, did you guys hear that?
I didn't hear nothing.
No.
Oh, it was just in my ears. I think that I kind of explain why I've done what I've done with my YouTube channel, and then doing this also. I hope that Josh asked pretty good questions, and we kind of shared that.
Cane Stream. Is it Cane Stream?
Cane Stream is the YouTube channel. I think Fueled by Joy, I believe, is the podcast. That's what Jeff Lewis said.
Okay. You was on that one today.
Yeah, I
Fueled
think
by
so.
Joy. Okay.
I think so. But
Well,
anyway,
Brett, wasn't your first interview the old timer down there at Sanderson that was dying of cancer?
yeah, I didn't get to do a sit down interview with him, but I was going through Sanderson, and I stopped at the little convenience store there, and I was trying to kill time. I had a job to do down by Houston, and I went that way, and I had heard that there were some good lion hunters in that country, and I asked them, and they said, "Oh yeah, what was the man's name?" It's on my YouTube channel, and I went in, and he was. I never will forget. He was sitting in the couch, had a TV tray there that was just full of pills. I mean, there was. The guy was. I mean, he was literally in his last leg there. I mean, and I got to talking to him, and I asked him some questions, and I remember I think it was his daughter or his wife. I said, do you have any pictures? And they said, well, they put it all together. A guy was going to write a book on him, and they wanted all their pictures. Lost all their pictures. They never seen the guy again. And and
Oof.
you would talk to him, and he did a lot of trapping too. He was a trapper, and he trapped. But when you talk to him about the dogs, you could just see his eyes light up. I mean, he loved to talk about the dogs. And I sat there and talked to him for, shoot, I bet I talked to him for almost 2 hours or something. He got pretty tired. And then when I left, I think I still had some pictures. Yeah, I took pictures of his pictures, I think, that he had left. And then when I left, I just put, I think it was just on an iPhone or a phone or something. When I was driving down the highway, I kind of told the story about him and sitting down talking to him. It was kind of sad in a way, but he did enjoy talking to me about the hounds and about the lion hunting and everything. And one of the things he was real proud of, he never left a dog out. He said, I never left a dog out. I always went to him. And you could tell by looking at him, the guy was, he was tough when he was young. And but even then, he's sitting there dying of cancer, sitting there smoking a cigarette.
Did what he wanted. Did
Yeah,
what he
well,
enjoyed.
why change then, you know? But gosh darn it, what is his name? Does anybody remember?
No, but I remember when you told me that story, you had just done it, and I thought that was a pretty neat deal because I've always loved to go and sit and talk and listen, and hear people's stories just like you're doing now. And my son, my oldest son, lived in Kansas, and we went over there for Thanksgiving one year. And the old man that owned
Oh
the
crap, Brett! It's
farm,
6:30.
I know. I sent him the link.
Oh, did you?
Yep. He must have fell
You
asleep.
sent it to his that email.
Yes, I did.
It's 2:30. It's 2 in the morning over there.
He probably asleep.
Yeah. He texted me. He's like, "Oh, I don't want to miss it." I said, "Well, we'll send
Yeah.
it."
No, I sent him the link. Hmm.
See, make sure he hasn't. Maybe he just didn't wake up. Haven't heard from him. We were gonna have Bear Saragusa on to talk about Norway. I think his alarm did not go off.
Probably not.
Maybe he just didn't want to talk to us.
Yeah.
Anyway,
At that same time, I Henry McIntyre. I stopped and talked to Henry McIntyre too. I think it was on that same trip or a trip before that. Maybe Henry had already passed.
Was that the guy? Was that the guy in Oklahoma with his nephew with him?
No. Henry McIntyre is the old time cowboy lion hunter from down there in Texas. Ornery old dude. But yeah,
He's awake.
that was.
Send a link. Here, I'm just gonna forward it to here.
But I talked to Henry in the early '80s. I got to go by and visit with him, and that was pretty cool. Alvin, when is Brett going to Mexican to hunt jaguar? Hey, Bear's joining.
Oh, there he.
Let him rub the sleep out of his eyes.
I told him we sent a link.
I've listened to Bear's voice, but I don't believe I've ever looked at him.
Well, he's about as pretty as us.
He fit right in.
Oh,
He's
dear.
got hair on his face.
Yeah, got that. Trying to get that Lorax mustache going with his little dirty spot on his chin.
Dirty spot on his chin. Yeah, a little bit of. I wanted
We're
to fit in
mean.
with Ben.
We're mean on this. You know why we're mean? Because we got Benny. He carries a spear and he'll stomp you.
That's
We
why
got-
I got the mustache. I wanted to fit in with Benny.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Good
we
morning.
got Bear. Bear, how pronounce your last name? Saragusa?
That's right.
Oh, cool. I did that right. And the name of your
You did.
podcast?
The Hunting Hound.
The Hunting Hound. And
Yes, sir.
Chris got a hold of him and talked him into visiting with us. He's in Norway, and it's what, 2:30 in the morning over there?
Yep.
That is right. Yep, 2:30 in the morning.
Is it cold over there?
Oh, it's been real cold. Yeah, we had a long stretch of about variated between 25 and 30 below for
Jeez.
a solid. That was
Listen,
most
you're not
of
even allowed
November.
to say that degree on this. You can't
Benny's
even
liable
say
to
that
just
degree
turn
on
off
this.
his camera and
Nah,
leave.
look. Yes,
Yeah, I
his
almost-
nipples are already
Yeah.
getting hard.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been cold and we've gotten a lot of snow.
So
What's your high in the day? What's your high in the day then?
when it during that cold period, it's warmed up a little bit now. So now we're in the teens and 20s
Warms up.
plus, so not too bad during the day. But yeah, for a while there, our highs were 20 below.
how long does it stay like that? What's the season last?
Well, usually it doesn't get that cold. We'll have some days like that, but this year's been an odd one with some bad weather during the summer, some catastrophic flooding, and then some. This most of November was that cold, and then we had a stretch with kind of standard winter temperatures, and then it got real cold again a couple weeks ago. So it's been an unusual winter in that way, a little colder than normal.
What do you do this time of year when it's that cold?
Just batten down the hatches
Nest
and
in the house.
put on a
Nest.
sweater.
Watch
Yeah,
some
exactly.
John
I mean,
Wayne.
pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Sit down watching. Yeah.
Watch a lot of TV.
Start out.
There's a
You
YouTube
were-
channel I really like. This Born 100 Years Too Late.
Oh, that
Yeah.
guy. Not that guy. Not
Okay,
him again.
that's enough.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. I didn't pay you. I paid you to come on and talk about my YouTube channel, not his.
That's right.
So you
That's right. Well, I
start.
appreciate you
tell
guys
us
having
about
me
you
on.
because. Oh, no problem. You started out in the United States.
With hounds, you mean, or just like in life?
Just in general.
Yeah, I did. I was born and raised in Maine. And got into.
Did you have hounds over here?
I didn't. No, I had long distance sled dogs.
Wow.
Oh.
So I did that for a bunch of years. Got into that in 1998, and did that until 2 years ago.
You competed?
Actually, I did. Yeah, not. I wasn't worrying anybody when I, stood on the start line. Nobody was looking over their shoulders for me, but I participated. I have a whole big cabinet full of participation trophies.
Well, I mean, tell us about that. How does that work? What? I mean,
We're gonna
the
hold
competitions.
Benny back. We'll hold Benny back because he don't like nobody but lion hunters. I know
don't
that.
say nothing bad. He'll get his
Yeah.
stomp going
He already
on.
don't like you because you're not a desert hound hunter.
Yeah, you're over there in the snow. You're already on his bad list.
You
Well,
knucklehead.
I'm sorry.
I love all classes of working dogs.
Yeah.
Well, Um,
And get me
you
my
know, I got
spear. I'm
the.
gonna have to button this.
Well, I got into it with back in the. I mean, yeah, back in the beginning of the last century, they started a research station down on Antarctica. It was a joint British American research station, and this was pre snowmobiles. So what they had was sled dogs. These
Oh,
big,
wow.
burly, yeah, Greenland dogs, Inuit dogs, Malamutes, things like that. And in 1993, somebody decided that the sled dogs posed a risk to the seal population, which was hogwash. But so the dogs were moved. And so the sled dogs that I got my start with were the a bunch of those dogs got moved to Maine, and so the sled dogs I got my start with were the descendants of those, or not the descendants, the kids, the pups of those dogs.
Oh, so you started with pups then?
I started with adults, working with the people who owned them at that point, and then got
Oh,
eventually got pups of my own. Um, and moved to a little bit more of the modern Alaskan Husky, which is a little bit smaller and a little less. Those Greenland Inuit Malamutes, they were intense.
just had to be
They were
worked
intense.
hard.
Lived to work and eat and breed and fight was basically the
Big
only
old,
thing that motivated those dogs.
I'll be
Dry
damned.
ground lion hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was in my 20s.
That's,
You
So
just described
that's
Benny all the way right there.
that was Benny when he was in his 20s.
when he's in his 20s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I did that, and how it usually would work for me was that I would I had this big dog trailer. I'd load up a big pack of dogs and um drive to some trailhead somewhere, hook up my sled directly to my truck, and then start hooking up dogs until I had the team that I wanted to take with me, and untie the sled, and off we'd go. And yeah, I thought about somebody just asked a question here. I thought about the Iditarod for a little while. It was actually ultimately my dream was to go and do Iditarod. I went to Alaska for a while and ran some very good dogs over there, but the Iditarod that's an intensity level that's just completely different. And I was still I mean, heck, I got started with sled dogs before I was even in high school.
Hmm.
So started working when I was 12 to pay for the sled dogs, or pay for some of it anyway. Um, and yeah, that got me connected with some people who eventually started working in outdoor education, or I did, and that's where I met my wife, who's a Norwegian, and that's how I ended up in Norway. Is we married, and she wanted to go home.
And when you say in outdoor education, what do you do?
At that point, I was working for a company called Outward Bound,
Yep.
which they do a lot of different stuff. They'll do some adult courses, some veterans courses, some youth at risk, and then some open enrollment courses for just kind of anybody who wants to do it. And a lot of what I was doing was the open enrollment stuff. Kids that it was an interesting group because it was a combination of kids that a few that wanted to be there, some of them whose parents wanted them to be there, and then some of them who were really forced to be there, against their will. So it was always interesting. I think in some ways the dog sledding prepared me fairly well for that. Kind of trying to make this cohesive unit out of a bunch of different, basically tying a bunch of boneheads together and asking them to pull in the same direction. Kind of made it work for me. So, but what we were doing was, at that point they were 14-day courses, a week of expedition courses. We were out there the entire time, doing 14 days, 7 days of hiking and 7 days of canoeing in the the lakes region of Maine.
Hmm. And when you had your dogs, did you use your dogs in this at all, or did you get rid of them at that time? Or
No. I had most of the courses took place during the summertime. We did a couple of courses during the winter time. Not a lot of them. A lot of the dog sledding courses that Outward Bound did happened through the Voyager Outward Bound school in, I want to say Minnesota, but it might be Michigan. So, but I had the dogs during that time. They were at my folks' place while I was on course, and then came down to when I was attending college. They came down to college with me. I was renting a place down there, and brought them with me.
how many dogs do you feed when you're doing that?
I had at the most at that point, I guess I had about 15. So not very many at that point. When I met my wife and moved to Norway, she had already gotten into the sled dogs a little bit herself. Had traveled a little bit and done some dog mushing. And then when we moved to Norway in 2008, I brought the dogs with me and kept dog sledding here for another, whatever that would be.
Is it big over there?
Almost 4. It is. Yeah, it's actually bigger over here than it is in Maine. A lot of races here, and some very, very competitive teams. So like the biggest long distance sled dog race is the Iditarod over in Alaska, and that's been won 4 times, I guess, by Norwegians.
Wow.
So very good dogs, very good sort of well thought out training over here. So yeah, it's a good place to be a dog musher.
And you don't do it anymore?
I don't. No, I was working as a carpenter and fell off a roof and busted up my back pretty well, and that just kind of put standing on a dog sled in 20 below for 8 hours suddenly was not as much fun.
Oh, it is too painful.
Brett, you could teach him how to fall off, straighten it up.
Yeah, it's all in how you land.
Yeah, if you fell off a roof like Brett fell off a horse, you'd still be okay.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't do it right. I fell off the roof and hit the scaffolding on the way down, and then landed in the parking lot.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I didn't. I biffed the landing, I guess.
So you did that while you were in where you're at, Norway?
That's right. Yep, that's right. I did that in 2018. And kind of needed to learn to walk again. I was able to walk, but needed a lot of kind of physical therapy to get myself rolling again. And one of the things that they were telling me to do was to walk as much as I could. And I didn't have at that point I only had the sled dogs. I didn't have any other type of dog. And I got into somebody invited me to go hare hunting, and I did that. And they had a Norwegian breed of hound called a Dunker hound, which is very similar to a harrier. It's like, like a kind of big beagle.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as that dog opened up, it was like, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing from now on.
It's a trap.
So, did you get into running hares or?
No, the hares, I thought it was interesting, but what I was seeing a lot of was red fox.
Oh,
And when I grew up in Maine, I grew up in the sort of midst of this huge rabies epidemic. Um, so remember being chased off the playground by rabid skunks and being locking ourselves into a tennis court to get away from a rabid fox and things like that. So too many foxes makes me nervous. So I was offered a foxhound that I still have, actually. Um, and yeah, kind of never looked back. That was my first hound, and now I've got 4. But the
excuse me.
rules over here are a little different, right? I can't run even with even if I was running beagles for hare, I can't run a big pack. They've got limits on the number of dogs you can drop at a time. So when I'm hunting fox, I can really only hunt, at least in my area. And I don't know anybody else who does it differently either, but I can only hunt one hound at a time.
Wow.
Hmm.
So you better make sure you have a good one.
Yeah, and that's made it a little bit interesting, for me anyway. It's been with the sled dogs, you kind of use the other dogs to teach the young dogs. You gain, you save yourself a lot of time doing it that way. It'd be I never would have been able to train as many dogs as I did doing the sled dogs if I'd needed to train each individual dog to do it from scratch. And it's why I've only got the 4 hounds is I don't have the capacity to train more than that, because I've got each hound requires 4 hounds require 4 individual drops.
So the fox that you run, are you treeing them?
No, they're the red fox, so they don't, or I shouldn't say like a definitive no. It's happened once, but no, most of the time they'll go to ground.
Do you use a terrier then, or you love to do that?
Yep, yep, yep. I don't have a terrier myself, but I've got there are people in the area that have them. So when I den, I can give them a shout, and not that they don't always come, but at least have the possibility to give them a shout and see.
You
How
said you only allowed one dog. So, but if you have someone else with you, it's just one dog per person. So you can have 5 guys out there hunting.
No, unfortunately it's one dog per per pursued animal. So I can have, and we'll do that sometimes where we'll have 5 or 6 guys and we'll drop at 5 or 6 places.
Oh, so you're
And
covering
if we
more
get
country.
right, and if we get, 2 or 3 races going at the same time, that's great. We'll just, because they go to ground pretty quick, or some of the time, most of the time they do.
So the race
And
doesn't last too long?
It really depends on the hound. I've got a big. He's half Russian, and then his father came from Doug McMahon over in BC, and he's so big and so fast, and he's so quiet on the trail, like on the track. He won't open up until he's more or less on top of them, and then they freak out and they'll go right to ground. Whereas, I had a hound I had a plot that he, he'd open up when he woke up and was done with his breakfast. And so they knew he was coming from a mile away, and they would stay. Then the fox would stay on, because they knew where he was. They kind of had a beat on him, so they would stay above ground for much, much, much longer. So it
I mean,
depends.
do you enjoy that more, or do you like to see them be caught faster or go to ground faster?
I enjoy seeing them up, traveling. I think that's more fun. I like covering a lot of ground. I'm not a big fan of digging, and a lot of times you have to dig the terriers out,
Mm-hmm.
and that I don't like that as much. But if I could put the intensity of that Russian hound, that buzz dog, um, into a plot, if I could give him the sort of the plot deliberate trailing ability, I would do that. Because he's a that buzz dog. He's a little bit too warm. He's a little bit too warm for my taste.
How
I like a dog that can take an older track, and he's not really that good at that.
how do you start your hunt? How's it? Go through how it works?
Um, I'm not a big fan of even though we've got a lot of snow here, I don't like going and dropping on tracks.
You're making
Um,
points with Benny now.
I don't, it seems
It,
like
it's
I want a dog that can find. What'd you say, Benny?
I said it's the facial hair. We got to stick together.
On the same page.
There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to, I like a dog that has a good search. I want to be able to drop a dog in an area that I know there's going to be fox somewhere, and I want that dog to go out and find those fox. I don't want to have to, a lot of guys over here, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a personal preference deal, where they'll get up at 3-4 in the morning and start driving to cut a track, and I that's fine. That's just not my deal. I'm not running the hounds to sit in the truck. I want to be out there with them, and I want to, I want to kind of be part of the whole process. And so I'll go to an area that I like, or an area that I think there's some foxes, or an area where I've heard that there's some, an issue with a fox killing chickens or whatever. And I'll drop and let the dogs work. And, I've had some dogs that were really, really good at that. The plot was very good at that. Um, that buzz dog he's okay, but he's got a very good search, but like I said, he's pretty hot nosed. So it's got to be pretty fresh for him to want to take it and do anything with it.
How's your hound network over there? Is it easy to get a hound, or a lot of people have
Yeah.
hounds? You have the big names over there that have the good hounds.
Yep, for sure. It depends on what you're looking for. What a lot of guys over here want is that buzz type of dog. A hotter nosed dog that you can just drop on a track and it goes to ground. You can get the terrier out and you can dig, the dog that you're going to get, because that's the dog ultimately that you're going to get the most foxes for. But it's
Is that all you're hunting over there is fox? Or is there you guys get to hunt other stuff with dogs?
um we can hunt quite a bit over here with dogs. Actually, we do the hounds. We can't hunt the moose with hounds, but they've got those Norwegian elk hounds, and they'll hunt moose with those. So I've done that quite a bit. I don't have an elk hound, but I've participated in the hunt quite a bit. And then hare and pine marten, I'll hunt with my dogs as well. And then they hunt brown bear in Sweden, and we'll get, occasionally we'll have a wolf hunting season here that's based off of like a quota system. So we'll get so and so many in an area that we need to take out, and then the hounds, we'll use the hounds for that as well.
Oh, you use the hounds on the wolves?
Yeah, it's a funny thing, if the running other game, the wolves will come in, and it's not uncommon that they'll take a hound. But if you flip the tables and the same wolves figure out that, oh, that hound's actually trailing me, they'll wuss out and they'll run.
Really?
Yeah, it's the darndest thing.
Are they big like the wolves we have up here in the north?
No, they're not. They're not going to be like a timber wolf. They're going to be they're a little bit smaller. They'd be something between like a northern coyote and
like the Mexican
a
gray
timber wolf.
wolf.
Yeah, it's like we have
Yeah.
down here in our
Yeah.
country.
Yep. So, but yeah, we do quite a bit of that, and then we have the lynx season, that again is a quota season. So we have like in my district, we have 7 animals that we can harvest, and that season will start 1st of February.
So it's starting here soon.
It is,
Thursday.
and it's usually over pretty quick.
Are you going to go out and try to get you one?
How that happens is they break it up into teams. So it'll be probably 30 or 40 guys.
Wow.
Hunting the lynx. So I most likely would not even get to drop a dog, because again, it's 1 dog per pursued animal.
All animals?
Yeah. Regardless of what you're running, it's a single hound on. It's a 1-on-1, 1-to-1 ratio. Yep, even a wolf.
That seems crazy, because you see a lot of posts here where the wolves just murdered dogs, or everybody's afraid to go into a unit because there's too many wolves.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
What
it is a crazy deal.
How big is Norway?
Norway's pretty big. Norway's got an enormous amount of coastline. But we border to. It's not big in terms of landmass, but it's a very long country. So, if you put a pin in, it kind of stretches up along the top of Northern Europe. So if you put a pin in Oslo and rotated the rest of Norway down, you'd make it all the way to like the Mediterranean.
Oh, well, if I knew where Oslo was, I'd be in good shape there.
Just tell us, is it as big as Arizona or Texas?
Is it Texas, Arizona, New Mexico? Let's stay within the regions I know.
Right. Well, it's longer than California.
Oh.
And but low population, because it is cold and miserable here 8 months out of the year. So, big long country, but less than. I don't think we've broken 5 million people yet.
So is the game, is it spread out evenly throughout the country, or is it in certain areas?
It's spread out fairly evenly. You definitely have a little bit of a variation. The farther north you go, you're going to get into some of the reindeer. Uh, you know, get into some of those real northern breeds of animal, reindeer, Arctic fox, and then in extreme north, some of the islands off of the northern coast, there are places like Svalbard. You're going to get into polar bears and things like that.
So what's your terrain? Like, do you have elevations as far as like Arizona? Right now it's 75 degrees today. It was 40 degrees where I live up north. Is it all
Yeah.
one weather basically, or is it you guys different elevations and terrain and weather?
Oh, huge amount of variation. Yeah, for sure. So, like the West Coast is going to be a lot of cliffs, really rocky, and then you go all the way north, and then you get that kind of rolling tundra. Where I live is a forested area, like a boreal forest, uh, sort of poor quality farmland. A lot of hills, a lot of glacial valleys, places, things like that. But then you don't need to drive more than a couple hours south, and it flattens out again. And from then you've got a lot of rolling farmland for yeah a day's drive south.
So are you only allowed to hunt within certain areas? Like you can't drive off to another part if the quota gets filled here. You could go hunt somewhere else, or
Um, excuse me. I There are definitely people that do that. Um, the quotas fill up. The quotas are filled fairly quickly. Last year we had a little bit like this year. It's going to be interesting to see. We've got so much snow this year that really, like to use the lynx hunt as an example. We've got so much snow this year. We had so much snow last year that it really plays to the lynx favor. They can move. The hounds really just can't.
yeah.
So we end up spending a lot of time per animal that we take. So last year, it took 6 weeks to get all the animals that we had on the quota. The year before, it took 3 days.
Jeez. So in that quota, it's not just for your area. That's across the whole country.
No, they break it into regions. So,
Yeah.
like our quota was 5 animals last year, and then the other, another region, which would have been, 2.5 hours from here, would have had, 3 or 4, and then kind of like that. So I think in total, maybe a few hundred, not even. It must have been like in the 60s. Were taken nationally, just to kind of keep the population down, because Norway is still very much an agricultural uh, country. They, obviously they've got, the salmon and the oil and things like that, but there's a lot of agriculture in Norway, and what they have done traditionally and what they still do is this sort of summer grazing in the mountains.
Mhm.
So they're not, the Norwegians are putting there's a very definite amount of predators that they're willing to accept in Norwegian nature. So they keep the population of, especially bears and wolves, but lynx and wolverines and things like that, as low as they kind of can.
So you agree with their policies on the predators?
Um, Gosh, you're gonna get me in trouble here, Brett.
I'm
I was
curious.
gonna say that was a long hum.
Yeah, the people are gonna show up at my door if I disappear. It's been fun, everybody.
This is
No,
this live is only available here in the United States. So
okay, yeah, no, it's
Yeah, nice try.
the yes and no. On the one, the way they do their animal, their production animal management, sheep and cows and things like that, letting them up into the mountains to graze. They don't have shepherds anymore. The sheep are just, if you take sheep as an example, they're just out there from you know uh, end May until September. End August, early September. I don't think that that's possible without having the predator management that they've got. I think just the number of sheep that would be killed at that point would just be, make it not tenable. And also, we are so far north that the ability to graze our animals in the mountains, it makes it possible for us to have them in the first place. I don't think that we would not be able to do that, to have as many animals as we do, if all of our available haying fields went to grazing instead. So I think that it makes sense based off of, in sort of a historical sense, and also based off of how they do their animals, or how they do their sheep. But on the flip side, I kind of like pursuing some of these things, so I do wish that there were more of them.
so you believe that the quotas are too liberal? They kill too many of them, or are there government hunters or whatever you would call it there that go out and control the populations?
I don't think that the quotas are not too liberal. The issue is that they do have the government hunters that will go out, and when there's a problem animal, which is basically almost immediately. A wolf moves into an area, it almost immediately becomes a problem animal.
What about
And
guardian dogs?
I've been an advocate of that. I've got two. I've got
You
two
have
Maramas.
livestock yourself, right?
At the moment I don't. I've got sheep coming in the spring, but live in an area within a mile of my house are 8 different sheep farms. So I grew up with livestock, but don't have anything at the moment. That's changing in the spring. But yeah, there's a lot of license extermination based off of predation. But then they will also, the quotas are meant to kind of keep the population in general lower.
Well, it's similar to, I mean, hunting lions in California. The people, there's no, instead of the hunters buying a license and being able to go out and control the population, there's paid hunters that the government pays to take care of problem animals. And I mean, lions still die. It's just that they're they're
Just as
they're
many.
controlled by the paid hunters, the paid trappers, whatever, houndsmen, whatever they use. I don't know.
Right.
So
Yeah.
So are
No,
you
I mean
allowed to
it's
hunt
the
all
same.
year?
No. There are seasons. There are seasons for it, and um, not everything is on a quota system. So moose and uh, bear, wolves, lynx. Those are all on a quota system. You get delegated so and so many animals, and then once you've filled that, you're done. There are other types of animals, roe deer, which are these little, are these
Tiny,
little.
real tiny, right?
They're real small. They're like those coos
Like
deer.
50 pounds, 60 pounds.
Yeah, yep, real small. Um, those there's not really a quota on, so I do quite a bit of roe deer hunting, as well, and you can hunt
oh
those
cool.
with dogs here.
Oh cool.
So I've got a.
Well,
Uh, Go ahead.
what I'm saying is, like, you can is if you run your dog, you can run them most of the year on something. Or is there a couple months or a month? Like Arizona, you can run coyotes all year long.
Right. No, they all hunting seasons end in April. Um, or the remaining hunting seasons, I should say. There's a bunch of hunting seasons that are end before that, but April they want to let all of the animals, everything, have the time to raise their young and kind of get on solid footing before we then start pursuing again. So, and that was one of the reasons that I got into the fox hunting as well, is that the longest season here by far is the fox hunting. And I wanted to be able to get out as much as possible. The hare hunting season's 3.5 months, most places, and the moose season is, a month, or in some places 3 months in other places. The fox hunting season starts in with hounds starts the 20th of August and goes until the 1st of April. And that's pardon me. And that's the hunting season. There is no pursuit season. We don't have the between the 1st of April and the 15th, or between the 1st of April and the 20th of August. There's a leash law in effect that means that all animals need to be leashed.
Wow.
So are you using your dogs to run everything, or is it like some people run bear, lion with their dogs? But are you using one dog for fox, or are you using one dog for all of it?
I like to use one dog for as much as I can. There are some here in Norway. We're not allowed to run the bear with hounds. It's got to be with a Spitz type. Don't ask me why. It's insane. So to hunt bear with hounds, I'd need to go to Sweden.
How hard is that to get
Um,
over there and hunt, being in Norway?
that's not too bad. That's not too bad. But again, it's a quota system, so the area, like I was headed there. I was all packed up and headed there. I needed to finish work, so the season started on a Friday, and I needed to finish work, so I was going to go there Friday afternoon and get rolling like Saturday morning. Start driving Saturday night, Friday night, and be ready to roll Saturday morning. And I went to work on Friday, and by the time I was done with work and had gotten home and was loading my dogs, I got the phone call that they'd filled the quota and the season the season was over. So it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
And
What's the
again,
quota?
I'm not gonna the quota. I mean, it was a big quota, but there's so many people that
They flood
it's like the
in.
big happening in the hound world. Yeah, over here.
Mm.
So, and I there are guys where they'll set up their entire year around uh they'll set up their entire year around the bear hunts in Sweden, and I enjoy it, but it's not the thing I am most crazy about.
What kind of bears
'Cause
are they?
they're the big European brown bears.
Big suckers. Are they mean?
Oh, they're so mean.
How many dogs can you run on them? There.
Two.
Two.
Two good dogs.
Oh, they got
Or
to
maybe
be
two
good.
of your worst dogs.
Well, yeah.
The two you don't care about. Yeah.
Did they get a lot of dogs killed over there just running two bears? And is it two bears period, or
Two dogs.
like if you have two guys with you?
No, it's two dogs. It's two dogs per bear.
Per drop.
Yeah.
So what happens when you got three guys dropping and they all end up at a tree?
Fist fights.
Same thing that happens here.
Just like Arizona, New Mexico.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Just carnage. It's just carnage because what happens is everybody will be ready to drop. They'll been driving for days in advance, be ready to drop as soon as that first light on the first day. And they'll try and get in front of each other. There's a real competitive aspect to it, and most guys, you got a lot of guys that'll behave themselves, but then you've got a bunch of people who it's a status thing over here, and that can really establish your line of hound based on how they perform. So if you can get pictures with if you can advertise your hounds with bear, you're going to be doing pretty well for yourself. So there were
You got to catch them quick.
You got to catch them quick, and you got to stay after it. You got to hit it hard. You get one, you get it done, get in there, get it done, then you get back out there and find another one. And what ends up happening is the first day, there'll be a little bit of, it's mostly human carnage, people beating on each other, arguing over who found the track and blah blah blah, or whose dog was on it first. And, but by day 2, 3, at that point the bears have been more or less on their feet for 2 days,
non-stop
pursuit for without a break for days. And they're starting to get angry, they're starting to get tired, the hounds are starting to get tired, and then it's like day 2, 3 where it's just all hell breaks loose, and it just gets a little gnarly.
If it makes it that far,
a lot of
they don't close the
yeah yeah, if it makes it that far, exactly. So, but even so, it's a lot of dogs are getting injured because the brown bear, they won't climb.
Yeah.
So every bear is a walking bear.
So how many bear can you get? Just one, or can you go out and get 5?
I mean, if you're in an area with a quota, with the quotas over there are a little bit bigger than they are over here. So, if you've got a quota in an area with a quota with 30 bears, there's going to be, there could be 200 hunters trying to fill that quota. If you've got great dogs and you could fill 9 of those if you wanted to. I mean, you could fill them all if you wanted to, if your dogs were that much better than everybody else's.
So you're allowed to kill more than one, though, is what I'm saying, or is it you have to have
yeah
allowed one?
No, I mean, you're allowed to kill all of them. It's until the quota. It doesn't matter who kills them.
Wow.
Oh, anybody can.
That's crazy.
I can see why there's fights then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We'll bring Benny. There won't be no fights. Just
Benny and his spear.
Standing at the tree.
Spear. I'll send my first.
He's talking and his lips aren't moving.
Oh, I sent my first wife here.
That's wild to hear how they do it somewhere else. That's something.
It
Yeah,
is.
I mean, and it's cool in some ways. The dogs are, like you said earlier, you can't do the quality of the dog is so high.
Well,
Um,
you're killing a bear and you're not even stopping. You're probably running those dogs right to the next tree if you can.
hmm, yeah, and the dog that's performed the best over here on those big brown bears has definitely been the plot.
I knew you were going to say that.
I thought you couldn't run hounds on the
In
bears.
Sweden.
Oh,
Sweden.
oh,
Yeah. Sorry, in Norway you can't,
okay.
but
In
in
Sweden,
Sweden
you use a hound.
you can
What's
run
that drive
hounds,
for
and
you?
then uh, to get to an area with a good amount of bear, it'd take me 5 hours maybe. Not too bad.
Oh, that's not too bad.
No. So
I had a Spitz, big white dog, big white
yep.
hairy dog, and let me tell you what. Now he was a treeing sucker. He would tree coon, he would tree house cats, and he was
Hmm.
triple tough. I mean, really tough, and real smart. And
Mm.
he was a neat dog. He wasn't even mine. I said I had him. I fed him for like 5 years. He was my sister's, I think. And when she moved off, he stayed with me. And I had the farm there, and there was a big drainage ditch, and sometimes you go out in the morning, he'd be down there, yep, 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 and he'd have a coon in a tree or a cat. He treated several house cats, and he caught a lot of house cats on the ground and dragged them up on the porch. He was a neat dog,
Cool.
and you
Hey,
could see him.
Cool.
Bear,
Yeah,
how,
You
there.
go ahead, Chris.
someone asked how do they control that quota? So if there's end of the day, or so if there's
No, they
10
do
bears
it.
left and 15 get killed, you know.
Well, they every every bear that is shot needs to be reported immediately. So, and then they will send out, it's a both phone call and an like a text message system. So they'll send out a mass text message, and you need to register in order to hunt for them. You need to register to be a part of this sort of text, message thing.
Yeah.
Where then they'll send out a text where it says,
It's
all bear
over.
hunting in region 4 is stopped.
So right then, right when that last bear gets, you're done.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at that text in one hand and have your rifle aimed at a bear in the other hand, it doesn't matter. You need to be done. And then they do all the weighing in, and they're real thorough about it over there. So they'll open the bears. You need to bring. I know in some areas, it might actually be all areas, but I think in some areas they'll do. You need to bring the bear out whole, and they need to make sure that the bear has not been baited.
Oh, there's some people who cheat like that.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
cutting
I
the
mean, so
stomach
they'll open
open.
them up, and they'll open them up, and if they're full of donuts, you better have a good excuse.
And y'all, I mean, they speak Norwegian there, right?
Yeah. In Norway we do, and then in Sweden they speak Swedish.
Is it
But they're
different?
similar enough. It's quite different, but they're similar enough that you can kind of be understood. It's a little bit like, yeah. What would you? it's kind of like the difference between
America and Texas.
yes, something like that. Yeah.
What?
So
Do you
you
speak
can
both?
I can speak both. Yep.
Really? When did you?
Mhm.
Of course. How long have you been there now?
I moved here in 2008, so I've been here for 16 years.
So you picked it up.
I did. Yep. It was a funny thing, I got over here and was just kind of missing out on everything that was going on around me because I couldn't speak the language yet. And but 90 something insane, like 98% of Norwegians can speak English.
Oh,
Because Norway's a small country, and to even really be able to function globally, everybody, they need to speak English. There's only like 5 million people in Norway.
yeah.
Um, and it means that a lot of the entertainment, a lot of the music, movies, TV shows, things like that are going to be in English from mostly from the United States, but also from Great Britain and places like that. So it is possible to live here and not learn the language and be able to live more or less normally. But to me, that just struck me as so poorly done. Like in the
To not
States,
learn. Yeah.
I don't. If you're gonna move anywhere, and I hold myself to that same standard. If somebody moves to the States, I think they should learn how to speak English.
Is there any like
You know.
crazy laws or rules or anything that you had a hard time getting used to?
Yeah, I mean there definitely is. Norway's what would you call it? A social democracy.
Socialist state.
Yep. So there were things that took a while to get used to, both positive and negative. The healthcare over here is very, very good, um, and is universal healthcare. So you know uh, don't have to worry about health insurance and things like that,
What
which
makes
is
it good? Just the fact that it's free.
well, it's free, but it's also the quality is really good. There's for some of the bigger things there can be a little bit of a wait just because there's no way to get sort of to the front of the line, but the facilities, the doctors, the medical professionals are it's all very high quality. So
What?
for me, like when I busted up my back, that was a godsend.
Well, why? Why is it that way? I mean, as compared to what we have here. This is not hound
I
related. This is just my curiosity.
Yeah, sure. uh I think the only reason it's that way here is because the Norwegians, because they found the oil.
Oh,
So Norway's as a state, the individual people are not not necessarily rolling in dough, but the country itself is they invested so much of that money and the funds from the oil into sort of public
healthcare.
works,
here's our
healthcare.
local snow hunter causing problems again.
There we go.
Not promoting anything,
Get
just
me the
explaining how it is here.
time.
Um, so, but there were there are some insane laws here that just I still find it difficult to swallow. One of them is, and it's a small thing for most people, but it still irritates me. Is they've got I need to have a special driver's license to drive anything bigger than like an F-150.
Hmm.
I would
A
need a
CDL.
trucker's. Yeah, exactly. So, like I'm not qualified to drive some of the vehicles that I grew up learning how to
Like
drive
a
on.
3/4
Still
ton.
irritates me a
You
little
know,
bit.
there's some guys in America that are driving 3/4 tons, pulling these ridiculously big trailers that should probably take a
Yeah.
little extra class.
Right.
And they were talking about that. The Department of Transportation were talking about making people that were pulling or driving those big diesel pushers, making
Yeah.
them get a commercial license, a CDL.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're getting up into that category, I can understand that, on the one hand, but at the same time, if I want to drive a 18 passenger van, I don't want to have to take
CDL
you know
class.
exactly.
So,
So,
do you miss the United States?
oh, of course I do. Of
Good.
course I do. Yeah. No, I miss Maine a bunch. It's Maine was a great place to grow up. I love it here in the sense that it's a beautiful country. The people are great, and it's where my family is. Kind of built the life here, so I'm happy here. But I definitely miss the States. It's a trade off. Everything's a trade off, I guess.
Sure.
So, but having said that, there's certain things, especially after becoming a houndsman, that I really, really appreciate about Norway. One of them is the right to retrieve.
Oh,
No matter where, you have
That
the right to go get your dog.
no does not matter. I could walk into your living room and get my hound, and you would have nothing you could say about it. And if you tried to keep my hound, you would have no legal leg to stand on.
Hmm.
Which I really like. I like that I can go in and get my hound. That doesn't mean my hound can do whatever it wants. If it goes and kills a bunch of sheep, I'm in trouble.
You're
But,
liable for
at
that.
the same time, right, but at the same time, nobody can prevent me from getting my hounds,
That's cool.
which I really
You,
appreciate. Yeah, I appreciate that.
the city of Alamogordo could use some of that attitude.
a lot of the cities can use it. What do you think, Benny? It's all about you. Is he okay?
We
Norway.
got to have
No,
your
it's not.
approval.
Yeah. Do we stomp
It,
him? What, Benny?
I I'm really intrigued by, it's
Whoop.
like my uncle when he had those dogs that were chasing bears. Just the thought of two dogs ground baying a brown bear. Good grief! You talk about
Yeah.
adrenaline.
Mm. Yeah, it's intense. It's and the dogs are just they're so tough. It's it requires so much grit to be able to pull something like that off, and and so much, you know both for the hounds and the guys, because it's not big open country here. It's it it's that kind of taiga, boreal forest, smaller trees, kind of bush, a lot of bushes and things like that. I've there's a well-known, you know really well-known bear hunter over here he's been on my podcast once. Yeah, at least once. um he was the guy that first imported plot hounds to Scandinavia.
I listened to that one.
Yeah, Rasmus. And I mean, and he's got he's got his own TV shows and things like that, and he videos everything. And he's got some footage that is just like boy, that'll clench you up watching that stuff. It's whew, where you can see the dogs, the bear's there, but you can't see the bear.
That'd be
And
scary.
he's got a couple where he had one where he was trying to figure out to get in there, and that bear charged the dog, saw him, turned and charged him.
Hmm.
He shot, and that bear collapsed with its nose on his boot.
That'll make you think about it.
Oh my gosh,
that's my. Yeah, that's what makes
I would
it
have
worth it.
stomped him.
How about your firearm laws?
Yeah, those are way different than in the States as well. They've got a very high number of gun owners here, actually higher per capita than in the States. But they're almost exclusively hunting related firearms. There's no like everyday carry
assault
type stuff.
Assault weapons.
Not
Can't carry
right,
my AR.
Right, and big clips, they limit it to like hunting. While I'm out hunting, they'll limit it to clips with I'm gonna say it wrong here, but I can have 2 in the clip and 1 in the pipe. So very limited there, and also limited to nothing automatic, and you have to have a special license for anything that is semi-automatic. So handguns are almost non-existent here. Like I said, very high gun ownership, but we're talking rifle, shotgun.
That adds a level of intensity to that.
Adds a level of intensity to what? I missed the last thing you said.
To the bear hunt.
Yeah.
Well, guys, what else?
Interesting stuff. That's interesting stuff. Other country stuff.
Oh yeah.
It is, and it took a little while to get used to it all over here, and I'm still not totally used to it. And it's everything's got its pluses and minuses. I found that some of the stuff I came over here real skeptical to didn't end up being as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like the socialized medicine sort of surprised me as being a little better than I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the flip side, the cost of living over here is ridiculous.
Your taxes are super high there.
Like super high.
40% or
yeah, like 30. Yeah, like 36% for most people, and then once you get into the higher tax, they've got these tax bracket kind of deals. So the more you earn, the more you pay in taxes. And so it's if you break it down, and we don't pay for higher education over here, we don't pay for health insurance, so it might balance out. I haven't really done the math, but at the same time, it's the taxes are super high, and the cost of living is just is extremely high. Right now, diesel would be, what would that be?
$8 a liter or a gallon.
Yeah.
Wow.
You're at a liter, right? It's like $2.50 a liter or $2.25 a liter or something, or
yeah, like $2.25 a liter. So yeah, it would be about $8.
Wow.
$8 a gallon for diesel, and then the gasoline would be even more expensive.
And they have oil there.
They have oil, but they've got it's
Yeah,
sort of
just
the
give them
down.
free health care. We'll take the oil.
They're going
Give
to,
them
I
free
mean,
health care.
you're going to pay for it one way or another.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's the thing, is that you're gonna pay one way or the other, and
Your gas bill is going to be high, but your insurance you don't need.
right. And I mean, and that's the crazy thing, right? Is that it's like, that's nice, but at the same time, you've got they've got a lot of hydroelectric here, but they sell a lot of it to the rest of Europe, so we pay an absurd amount for electricity. And they've got oil here, but they sell that to other places, so we pay what these other places pay to buy it from us.
So not much
So-
Which is
different than the
weird.
United States, is what you're saying.
I guess not. I guess wherever you go, there's going to be a bunch of sort of, questionable
So are
stuff happening.
your wages higher though? I mean, do you get paid more for what you do?
Marginally.
What's a carpenter pulling over there? Just a low grade carpenter. Like Arizona, I would say it's anywhere from $20 to $28 just for a
Yeah, like
just
a
a regular old
full
carpenter.
time a full time carpenter, like sort of basic entry level dude. I don't even know what it would be, like an hourly wage. You might walk away with, I don't know, $2,600 a month.
Yeah, looking at $20. Well, 20,
Yeah,
maybe $25 an hour,
Probably something like
and
that.
then they swipe 40% of it. So I'm sure people go to the doctor if they fart wrong.
It's free.
Probably gotta get your
Yeah.
money.
Got a
Gotta
headache.
get your
Go to the
money's worth.
doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, I clipped my fingernails a little too far in the other day, and I went to the doctor's just to gotta make sure. No, just kidding.
Make sure it get infected.
And
Make sure they don't get infected.
your podcast is on W Hunting Supply, right?
That's right. Yep. I've
So-
been there since the beginning. Yeah, I got Chris had me on as a guest way back when, like 3 years ago, more than that at this point, 4 years ago. And then Jason and Buddy had me on right after that, and not long after that, they offered me, asked me if I wanted to do my own podcast, and I was, thrilled to be able to do it. Part of it for me at that point, and still part of it for me, is that I've got a lot of experience with working dogs, but not a ton of experience with hounds. Still, I've been doing it for 6 years now, but that's not a lot of experience. So the podcast gave me the opportunity to get into contact with these people who knew what I wanted to know.
See, I don't know why you never got a hold of me.
Well, we talked about it a couple times.
I think
don't know
so,
why
yeah.
that never. Yeah, we did. I don't know
know.
why that never happened. Well, we were on. Why did that never happen?
I don't
Benny
know.
probably didn't allow it. Benny
Yeah.
probably didn't allow it.
I was on the Houndsman XP a long time ago. I mean, a long time ago. They Chris put me on there. I never will forget. He kind of asked me, "Well, who are you?" I said, "I don't know. I'm just."
And then they found out who he is, and they don't want him back.
They don't want me back now.
They said, we should have checked you out first.
But yeah, and then I started doing some stuff with W Hunting Supply, and now
Yeah, that's
this I
right. You had your podcast for a while, and then you did those daily tapes,
hmm
which were
hmm
just awesome. Those were amazing.
yeah, we're putting them up now on this channel on YouTube. So,
Cool.
and then these lives, I think they're going to go ahead. W is going to take them and share them on a podcast. And
Oh, cool.
yeah, if it works, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say how this is going to, uh, what do you say, transfer over to a podcast. I don't know how it'll work, and we'll just have to see.
I think it'll probably do pretty well because you got it's you've got this sort of similar format with like the Meat Eater guys are doing the
Kind of, yeah,
the video as well. I think it helps to be able to see people a little bit,
yeah.
kind of
And of course, they'll
chuckle with each
live
other.
on this YouTube channel, and then I'm going, and I've got several sit down interviews that I've done with guys that I think I did Joel Garnett, and I haven't shared it yet, and then I got to go uh, interview Warner Glenn, and then I've got uh, I went and interviewed John Clump, and he told us
Mm-hmm.
the whole story about the
You got a real
Jaguar.
interview.
Yeah.
You got the
So,
real interview.
Oh,
Like
cool.
what you just did on the video is kind of a teaser.
yeah. No, this is the
That's
sit down. All of us. Benny's there. I'm trying to get Benny to go with me on every interview in case somebody needs stomped, and
yeah.
because you never know.
Yeah.
I need a bodyguard.
That's why he's on here. If W don't want us, Benny will take care of it.
Yeah, we'll
Watch
sick
out,
Benny.
Jason.
Okay.
Watch out, Jason and Buddy. We
But
got a
Gotta
Benny.
flex those mustache muscles.
no, but we asked John. I said, you want to talk about the okay, you want to talk about the Jaguar, and because there was a lot of things that went on at that time with that Jaguar, but he caught a Jaguar in 1986, and he said, yeah, and he told the whole story, and it's very interesting, and isn't it,
Wow.
Benny? So
That's cool. That's
yeah,
cool. I'm looking
I
forward
think
to
it'll
that one.
make a
Yeah.
good podcast.
Keep your
I'm-
eye open. Keep your eye open for it.
I need more sponsors. I need more sponsors. So
Right.
Hey, someone asked about Tony Rivera too.
yeah, I'm supposed to go down and talk to him. Matter of fact, we talked to John about Tony Rivera because I talked to Tony several times on the telephone and kind of waiting for the right time. But Tony, one of the things he said is that he loved to buy dogs from John Clump. And I can see why. John has a knack with hounds that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
And Tony Rivera, no, for people who don't know, he invited you
Yes.
down to interview. He
Down
wants
to-
to do an interview.
Yeah, I got to go to Mexico, though. I have to go to Mazatlan. I think it's Mazatlan. No, is it? Where else is it? No, Puerto Vallarta. Is that right? I can't remember. It all sounds might as well be in
Nayarit.
Norway. Nayarit. That's yeah. But I thought Brad had Teddy Roosevelt riding with him, but it was. Oh, that's funny.
I thought Brett
Wow,
had
that's
Teddy
exciting.
Roosevelt riding with him, but it
But
was
yeah,
Benny.
so that's interesting. And then I've got some other guys. I'm not going to say their names right now that have told me that they're willing to do an interview. Guys that before we really wouldn't think would do it, but they said they would do it at the right time. Then I'm really excited to go talk to them. So anyway,
Brett has
but
a
these
lineup.
guys
That's
are not
exciting.
Brett
guys.
has a lineup.
These guys are not guys we can get online. These are guys that you just got to travel to them and sit down and talk to them. It's kind of a little different, different deal. So Anyway,
Yeah, it's but it's such a cool thing that you're doing though, because it's like, boy,
I
what a
enjoy it.
resource just having those voices preserved.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
I enjoy doing it too. I really do. So, and your podcast is the one that I when I my old man thing when I have to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning
Yep.
and I have to go use the restroom. I come back and I can't go back to sleep, and I turn on a podcast, and that's when yours comes up
Okay.
in the middle of the night.
I hope that I'll take it as a compliment.
No,
Puts you
that's
to sleep
good. I
before
listen
bed.
to it.
Well, that's good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like I like doing the podcast the way I do it. I'm it's not the most polished thing, but I wanted it to have the tone of just what I value with dog people in general, but how houndsmen especially is just the kind of relaxed atmosphere,
Mhm.
sitting back, shooting the shit, just
That you know,
sitting on a
Well,
tailgate
if
kind of a
you,
deal.
Bear,
And
hey Bear, if one day you'll get as polished as we are.
yeah,
Polished.
that's
well, that is the dream. But
You know, the
that's
5
one
minutes before it's time to go on, we say, "What are we going to talk about?"
and
we
that's one
should
thing Chris and I had talked about before. Said because we were meeting like this before we ever started going live, and said we might as well just go live. And then we started going live, and then we got some interest and everything, and said I don't want to make it just polished. We got to do this, we got to do that, and talk. I just want it to be a free for all. And if I want to talk
Mhm.
about UFOs,
Politics.
that's what I want to talk about. I mean, I don't want it to be. It's just us, just a bunch of guys sitting around talking, really. But
right,
and
right.
that's the
I
way
mean,
I like it.
it's why I think these will translate really well over to